folks, good morning. I'm Scott. If we haven't had the chance to meet, glad you're with us today. I want you to just kind of interact with me in this way. I'm gonna bring something up on the screen that I would love for you to kind of join me in kind of auto-filling in your own mind, okay? I'm gonna bring a couple sentences, and I want you to just fill in that sentence with kind of the first thing that kind of comes to mind, all right? So if people would just... And you're just going to fill that gap in your brain, right? If people would just, if you drove here, you need an example. If people would just learn to parallel park. If you walked here, if people would pick up after their dog. If people would just wear more purple, right? If people would just. Okay? Did something come to mind? I had like 10 things that came to mind, right? I was a little surly this morning. If people would just, then blank. Right? Fill that in, right? If people would just learn to parallel park, then I could get a space within 6 blocks of the church building. If people would just pick up after their dog, there wouldn't be rats. I mean, whatever you would fill that in, right? Take that thing you said first, and then fill it in with the second statement. If people would just, then blank. Okay, still with me? Let's do one more. Because people don't blank, then I blank. Because people don't know how to parallel park, and I can't find parking, I'm not coming, right? Because people don't blank, then I have to spend an hour. How would you answer? Because people don't, then I blank. And not to be glib, I mean, it's kind of fun to do this. And like I said, I got 10 different areas where I could fill in a little progression like this. It's kind of a window into kind of two things, isn't it? Like in some sense, it's a window into like annoyance and pain. And maybe some continuum between those two, but in another sense of it, right? Like particularly when matched to sarcasm, to eye rolls, to... your nonverbals. It's a window into something a bit more insidious. We've been looking at this idea of God's character and heart from the book of Luke 15, like chapter 15. And if you haven't been with us for these past couple of weeks, this parable that we've just looked at is the third of 3 parables Jesus is using to describe to a diverse audience, a very religious audience and a very non-religious audience, what God's kingdom and character is like. And in the first 2 parables Jesus gives, one about a coin and one about a sheep, there's a lot of celebration, like the same kind of celebration about a son. So week 1, we talked about the father in this passage reflecting, as in the previous 2 parables, a posture of reveling and restoration, a willingness to bring people who are lost home. And what that says about the character of the Father, right? But it says about God's character. Then last week we looked at probably the part of the story, if we have any familiarity with this text, that we're familiar with, that there is this son who comes to the end of himself, comes home, and receives that kind of reunion. And if we just stay right there, what we've got is kind of the thing of like those Instagram videos of like, you know, people being reunited with like their parents who have been deployed kind of stuff, right? Something that really tugs at the heartstrings and go, oh my goodness, what a beautiful picture of restoration and hope. But this story ends weird. This story ends weird, does it not? This story, I mean, you could be very acquainted with the prodigal passage and not know about this older brother. And that's what we want to take some time to think about. The older brother in the passage, the turn in Jesus' collection of stories where the reveling and the repentance turns to bitterness and contempt. When real convictions that the older brother has about some pain points in his story become poisoned What you have is contempt. What you have is the inability to appreciate and enjoy the feast and the character of the Father. And so that little opening exercise kind of hints at a thing that may be true in your story today. That maybe there's some area in your life where last week you could go, yeah, I identify with the younger brother in the passage in some particular way. But is there a place today where a conviction has become contemptuous, where a feeling of pain has been poisoned to a place where your most intimate relationships with God, yourself, and others are impacted? And if that's you today, where is the good news in this passage for you? Which doesn't have a happy ending, at least as far as, the resolution we've been given for the older brother. Okay, so let's think about this for a few minutes, and let's think about what's going on in this guy's story. Like a legit pain point, his brother squandered family fortune. His brother has hurt his family. His brother's hurt him. But what we have now instead is in his own relationship with God, an inability to connect on the level with God. Okay, so let's talk about that. Verse 17, if you go back and look at verse 17, what you have is a younger brother who is out and about, spending things wildly, getting what he wants, coming to an aha. And what's his aha? That on my father's estate, even the hired workers, even like the contracted employees, he doesn't have to be kind to, he doesn't have to pay above a certain level, even they have food to spare. Like maybe that's just a trivial detail to you, but it says something about the character of the father. The younger brother, in his realization that his projection of his dad was not accurate, comes to that conclusion and goes, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to negotiate being one of those hired hands. But look at the language of the older brother in verse 29. The older brother, when he hears the music, when he hears the electric slide or whatever's bumping down the hill or over the way, when he hears the dancing and he asks about what's going on, and he finds out the younger brother's back, they're throwing a party, the fatted calf has been killed. Look at what he says to his father. All these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. All these years I've been slaving for you. So the son that's younger and went wayward is like, man, the servants get treated real well, but he, I'm not worthy to be called a son, I'll be a servant. But here the son's going, I'm even lower than these like hired servants. Like I've been slaving away, following the rules, and I don't get fatted calves. I don't even get goat. I get nothing. Look at that picture toward the Father. Look at that picture of contempt toward God, right? Because what he's done, this religious following of the rules has in his mind made him better. But what the text is showing us is that it's made him bitter. It's made him unable to enjoy the very thing that he's like to be celebrated for, which is that he's got a sonship. He's invited to the table. So this is kind of a cautionary tale in a sense, right? For the Pharisees and the crowd about the nature of religiosity. Have you ever, with your weight loss regimen, with your can-do running marathon spirit, with your I scale walls for fun because I'm an alpha, ever fallen into the trap of taking the rules that kind of get you to be able to do those things and elevating them in such a way that you can't even enjoy the thing that you're supposed to be doing as a result of doing those other things? If that's you, right? Like that is what has happened here with the older brother, right? Has it ever been possible in your Christian life where you've been so obsessed over behaving the right way that you've just forgotten what it is we're actually celebrating and doing here? It's happened to me. It happens to me. It happens to all of us. And this son, like this son's contempt toward God, right? I did the right things, right? This goes back to, remember the era when you filled out all the scholarship applications and you studied for the SAT and the ACT and you thought to yourself, like, I'm gonna get all these scholarships. And then you got your FAFSA. You felt cheated, perhaps. Maybe you didn't. But like, again, that's what we're talking about here, right? Like, because I have followed the right rules, I know better what to do with the ring, what to do with the robe, how the restoration would go. We don't say it out loud. But what the son, it was kicked up in the son's spirit is a confrontation with the idea that he has his own picture of how the father's estate is supposed to be run. And when it doesn't run his way, that scorecard is a thing he weaponizes. And it poisons that very intimacy that's available to him. That very intimacy that he's never actually declared that he did not want to be available to him. And is it possible in your story today, you've got a version of that going on in some area? It skews not just our view of God, to be sure, right? Like God is this, hey, if I do these things right, then God will deliver this way. It can also kind of skew our version of our events towards ourselves, right? So if we take a look at ourselves and our own spirit, if you look at that same text in verse 29, I've been slaving away and I've never disobeyed your orders. That's funny, right? Like contempt tends to speak, if you're wondering and alerting yourself to the presence of it in your story, it tends to speak in those always nevers. It tends to speak in that place of like, I've always do this and you don't. And thus, right? So he says, I have never disobeyed your orders. Come on. You've been a son or a daughter at some point, right? There has been some time where you didn't dust the way you were supposed to dust. You didn't put the pickle jar back where it's supposed to go because it's supposed to go on this shelf, but not to this shelf. And then sometimes you're like, I'm going to put it here. Take that. I got teen angst. Like that's real. Like that's a thing, right? But at this case in time, in this point in time, he just cannot see. Now let's be real for a minute. He's got real pain. Like if you've ever been the person in a family have kind of watching your parents suffer because of the behavior of someone else, like that is a real pain point. Don't minimize it. This like the thing that's actually one of the things that's really tragic about the passage is that there would be this opportunity for a grown intimacy between the father and the older brother who are both grieving the reality of the thing that's lost. But instead, he's allowed it to harden him. He's allowed it to elevate his view of himself and kind of put down and neglect that pain. So there's a real infection here. Like, let's not minimize that this person has had to be a bystander to a really hard and heavy thing, and that coming to that feast, even if that was processed beautifully, would have been a bit complicated. But he's kind of glossed over it, and now he has this really high view of himself. Now he has this really high view of himself in a way that sort of is ridiculous and parody. We just finished a community needs assessment a few weeks ago at the Foundry for this Foundry Forward thing that we've done. I was just thinking about the first community needs assessment we did with our launch team back in June of 2023, because tomorrow's our 12th birthday as a church, which is kind of a cool thing, right? Like we're going to celebrate it next week. Next week's the party, okay? I was thinking about this night where we had done the 1.0 version of this CNA, and we're sitting at my house on Heath Street that way in a rental, And we're wrestling with this Venn diagram of things we've all learned about the community. We're solving big problems. We're making Baltimore, into a place of flourishing for everyone ethereally. And we feel really self-congratulatory and yay God and all of the things. And what breaks the inertia is a roach running across my floor. There are people sitting on the floor, and I don't know these people. I know them, but I don't know them, right? And as the roach kind of runs and scurries to shadow, the meeting is over, right? The meeting is over. I hear a charming story about roaches crawling out of someone's house in the sink from Locust Point way back in the day when they grew up here. But largely, any celebratory, any yay God moment I had, I'm just going to be candid with you, was now suddenly in a spirit of, here's where my brain was. They're never coming back. Because now they know I'm a person that has a roach in my house. I don't know how long you've lived in Baltimore or the greater Baltimore area, but there's this thing that happens in a humid summer with houses that are connected to each other and all built about 135 years ago, is that pestilence is a thing. And you can take some mitigating you can do some mitigation, right? This moment that should have just endeared us to be I am also a person that, it for me became a moment of existential embarrassment that I had to confront in my own spirit. We're after the meeting, and I'm saying to my wife, they're gonna think we're the kind of people, she's gonna say, let me finish the sentence for you. The kind of people who are humans, the kind of people who live in Baltimore, and know what it's like to have a row house in Baltimore? Yeah, keep talking, buddy. And so that is what we're talking about here, right? This distorted view of ourselves that blocks us from being able to really capture or enjoy. Why are we following the rules to begin with? Because there's a relationship in it. Why are we people in need of God's grace and mercy? Because we're very human. But we've normalized and maybe overcorrected some of those pain points and not confronted them well, and they've grown over to just normalizing kind of this grudge-driven limp that we're walking with. And that's the thing, I think, that's really tragic in the passage. That's the thing that the rule follower is trying to be set free from, a false view of himself. Because here's the reality, right? You live long enough, you're going to be the younger brother. You're going to be the younger brother. And in some area of your life today, you can be killing it in 99 areas. There is one area of your life where you go, ooh, don't go there, please don't. I don't want to talk about that. Where you are also the younger brother, right? So this false view of ourselves is the thing that the father is also trying to set the older brother free from, all right? Let's move on to the view of others in the passage, the view of others. He uses this phrase, this son of yours. Now, I recognize that language because it's language I use when my children are being fools. When my children are being fools, there's a common trope between the two of us, Amber and I, that's this daughter of yours. Right? It's usually in those things that the ways in which Amber and I are different that we found so charming in 2003. Oh, the way in which you don't think like I do, and I'm so drawn to that. Opposites attract. Hooray you. Hooray me. We hooray us, right? When manifested in our children, become this you know what your kid just did? You know what your daughter just said? We can keep that lighthearted. But you know what it also is? When we're actually moving past the snark and the silliness of it all, it's an excuse to emotionally withdraw. It's an excuse to emotionally go, that's not my problem, that's your problem, because she's just like you. there's some version of that happening here, right? This son of yours. Okay, not this brother of mine, but this son of yours. Like he has no ability to capture the essence or the heart of what's happened here. He turns his brother into a caricature. And if you turn someone into a caricature, by the way, compassion is not an easy thing to grasp at. Like if someone is just the punchline to your joke, if someone's the reason why things are bad, if someone is the reason why like there's a problem here, you will never move toward them. Because they just stay in this ethereal space. These people are always like this, and that's where he leaves them. So any meaningful attempt to be edified or helped in the passage by like the true kind of series of events, any real way to understand the heart of why the father is killing the fatted calf is moot, because all he can see is it's just not fair that this kind of person gets rewarded. I get that, right? And you kind of live that way maybe in some area of your life where like the caricature kind of arises. And, like the other thing I would say, right? Like it's just another anecdote to point out in the passage. Jesus, what did he say in the beginning? I don't know if we've heard it 3 times if you've been with us for all 3 weeks. But when he describes what the younger brother has gone to do at the beginning of the passage, when Jesus is telling the story, he says wild living. Okay, wild living there, back around 11 to 13. Wild living, verse 13. Look at what the older brother says about him in verse 30. That he's gone to spend the resources on prostitutes. Now, how would he know that? He doesn't know that. He could think it. Maybe he knew some of the vices his brother had before he took off. But he can't, in fact, know the full of the story. So the compassion is essentially non-existent. He's filled the gap for what those kind of people do. Even if that is one of the things that kind of person did before they left. And oh, by the way, what's the real grief? It is grievous if that is in fact true, that would have been that the exploitation to the younger brother and to the people he exploited would be a problem. But if he had looked at his dad, said, "I wish you were dead. I don't want any part of you," and then gone and spent it all in crypto, is that better? I mean, maybe it hurts less people transactionally. But in terms of the original presenting grief of the passage, to tell God, like, I think the way you do this is stupid, I'm about to go my own way, he can't move toward him. He's filled in the gaps. He's made his brother into a caricature. And that makes in our own heart, when we're there, like if you're looking for whether or not I have a pain or a poison going through me, where is it difficult for you to move toward other people? Where is it difficult for you to pursue curiosity? I don't want to minimize the pain that you feel. I'm not. I'm with you. But when it comes to really helping others and being people of flourishing, we were talking about this first hour on the curb, it's really difficult for me to move past the paralysis of the poison to actually helping people when I'm just obsessing over having contempt for them. When the algorithm is just feeding me video after video after video of why I should think these people are particularly stupid, why I should think these particular people aren't worthy to, like if you live in that space, it will actually rob you from the very flourishing you claim to want to create, which is what the tragedy of the passage is. That this older brother's attempt to keep the kingdom going, he's allowed to become so burdensome that it's drifted away from the very thing his father was trying to pass along to begin with. What is this kingdom about? Who is this kingdom for? And we've already said it. It wouldn't have been easy to go to that party. It would have been complicated at best, right? To watch someone who is squandered and hurt and harmed be celebrated. No, I'm not about that. But it would have maybe been helpful to begin that journey of healing in his own story. And instead, you have this moment, like this same patriarchal moment, where we'll close here. We said in week 1 that the father, when the younger brother came to him and said, I wish you were dead, give me my share of the estate, that the patriarchal society, you throw the jab if you need to. You know, you do a roundhouse kick if you need to, because you're the patriarch. You don't talk to your dad that way. That's not 2025. I get it. But do you notice when this son throws basically like, this son of yours spent it all, and you never gave me a goat, let alone the fatted calf. I'm not going to your stupid party. You know, the same kind of smack, jab, roundhouse kick that was available for the younger brother could show up right there too. But instead, there's a loving imploring, come to the party. Everything I have is yours. This son of mine was dead and is alive again. He's lost and he's found. This is what I care about. And even though you spoke to me that way, you still get to come to the party too. Even though that's the starting point of where things are in your heart right now, I still want you to see the way I want to do things. You can still come. This part of the passage, right, for you and for me, for all of us, I think is just to be people who are committed to creating flourishing in times of chaos. We need to see the younger brother in us, but we also need to see the older brother in us too. And to receive grace and mercy in our time of need in both of those parts of that story, and to create grace and mercy in our time of need, is what we do as a healthy and healing church community. So before we move to communion this morning, we just want to give you some space to practice this. We want to give you some space to kind of process maybe some places where there's pain drifting towards poison, or maybe where there's just poison that like you need the love of God to be the antidote for. We're bring kind of a 3-prong prayer on the screen. I'm going to ask you to just take a minute, and if you need to shuffle your shoulders or close whatever you got to do just to kind of get yourself in a posture to be focused on bringing your thoughts to God, do it. And as you do it, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to bring 3 prompts up and kind of give you some space. I'm going to say what it is to talk to God about and just give you some space to do that, right? And invite you to do it. You don't have to do it, but I just want to invite you to create this space. If you get distracted, come back. It's okay. You don't have to use fancy words, these, thous, where arts. Just tell God where you are today. What pain do you need to bring before God this morning? If people would just, but the more serious version of that, would you bring that before the God of the universe this morning? Let's take some space to recognize that pain. If we've already detected the presence of it in this hour, maybe notice it and name it before God. If we got no clue, say, Lord, would you speak to me? Would you show me the presence of contempt in my story. And lastly, we just want to open ourselves up to God's help. Maybe there's a specific thing you need to ask God for help in. Maybe you don't even know where to start and you just need to be still. But as we bring our pain before God, as we recognize how we've been carrying it, may we also open ourselves up to what God wants to do in that particular area of our story. Lord, as a church of younger and older brothers, we bring these things to you. As a church of individuals who are both the younger and older brother, we bring these things to you and ask for the love of the Father to meet them.